UFC 260 this weekend marked the last fight deal with Reebok. UFC 260 will be the last time we will see UFC athletes wearing Reebok in the octagon. Their new deal with Venum starts this following weekend with what was going to be Till versus Vettori that might be Kevin Holland versus Vettori, but we'll get onto that later on. So the UFC's deal with Reebok is officially finished. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this when it first came in because UFC fighters used to wear what they wanted and get sponsorship from various different companies that they chose and they decided on. And then when they bought in the Reebok deal, it was very controversial because all of a sudden fighters were being paid 30, 40, 50, 60,000 pounds a fight by sponsors, were cut right down to $2,500, $3,500 from Reebok. So it was very controversial when it first came in. However, it did look a hell of a lot more professional. And when you think about the NFL and you think about the NBA, you can't just turn up and wear what you want. You wear who the team is sponsored by. And this is why the UFC did this and made this move 6 years ago to try and make themselves a lot more marketable and a lot more of a global brand. So on the whole, it kind of suited everyone, although the fighters couldn't see that. If you just bought a fighter into the UFC when that deal was on, they wouldn't know anything different. But when you've got people that have seen what they were getting before, and then all of a sudden the rug's pulled from underneath them, that's where the problem was. The new deal has been signed with Venum. It goes live the first weekend in April, the first fight weekend in April, which is probably going to be Kevin Holland versus Marvin Vettori, but we don't really have all that information at the moment. It's a little bit up in the air. Now, this deal is not as long as the Reebok deal, and it is not for as much money as the Reebok deal, but that is all we know about it at the moment. As far as what the fight kit looks like, I guess we'll see that in a week or so's time. But all we've seen at the moment is a little sort of snapshot of a black t-shirt with a Venom thing there. It looks a lot like a black t-shirt with a Reebok thing there. And a bit of the problem at the beginning was the lack of individuality that the Reebok deal gave fighters. You know, it was a year or two before they started making better t-shirts and more kind of unique designs specified to that fighter. You know, Sugar Sean O'Malley had a good one that ended up coming out, but it took a long, long time before that happened. And I just hope that with this Venum deal, we start to see that earlier on, because it is fun to see a little bit of individuality. One thing that I thought was interesting in the article that I read about it was that they will have a fight week gear and they'll have a fight night gear. So during the fight week, they'll have specific uniform or branding or clothes or whatever you want to call it, and then during fight night they'll have a different outfit altogether. So that will be a little bit interesting to see what that is and the differences between those two. Another little thing is that the UFC have kept Reebok as a shoe sponsor. So obviously the fighters have to wear shoes when they walk to the arena because the floor's dirty. Why else do you wear shoes? But Venum don't make shoes. So I guess they were probably in a little bit of an interesting situation where they kind of had to do a deal for shoes because Venum don't make shoes and you can't have people wearing barefoot. And then all of a sudden you'll probably start seeing people wearing their own shoes, getting their own sponsors, and that's something they probably want to stay away from. I don't particularly think that's fair. I think when you look at the NFL and you look at the NBA, the uniform is the uniform, and then you also have players able to go out and get their own shoe sponsor. You can get your own cleat sponsor in NFL. You can get your own trainer or sneaker sponsor in the NBA. So I think the UFC probably missed a trick there. I think they should allow the athletes to go out and get their own shoe sponsor within reason. They can set the guidelines and the parameters of what they think is acceptable and what they think is not. But I think they've probably missed a trick there and they should allow that to happen. Maybe caps as well. Maybe each fighter gets their own cap sponsor and they can kind of just go off and get their own. It's just, I just feel like maybe if you give them that little victory and that little sort of chance to make a little bit more money, that a lot of the talk around fighter pay and stuff will kind of start to die down. But, you know, when we look back at the UFC's Reebok deal, it was a groundbreaking deal at the time. It was for a lot of money, $70 million. The Reebok actually paid out $40 million to fighters. They used to have a sliding pay scale, so depending on how long you've been in the UFC and how many fights you'd have, it would start at $2,500 and it would cap itself off at $40,000 a fight. So apparently the Venum deal will offer more of a percentage to the fighters than that, which is, again, a positive. How much more, we don't know. They just use the word significantly. So I guess we'll get to decide what is and is not significant. But I'm very excited to see what the new fight kits look like. I'm interested to know how long this deal is for. I'm interested to know how long the UFC's foot deal with Reebok is, shoe deal with Reebok is, because we don't know any of that information. But here we are, a week and a half away from the very next fight night, and we haven't seen what the new fight kits look like. Bit odd to me, but I guess we'll find out.